designing to your budget. So you've worked out how much money you have to spend. You've maybe estimated what you can get for that amount of money if you use the previous node's sort of tools. And now we'll talk about more specifically, like how can you craft a game that may be a little bit different to what you had designed based on what the likely cost of that game is going to be. So I'm of the opinion that there's always something in your game that you can cut out that you might not need, or that you can combine into another component if need be. So board gamers and will generally like a game that has many components in it because it's fun to pull out, like it looks good, it helps disseminate the information among a lot of different kind of areas. You don't want to go too far and have like a different card for every single possible roll eventuality or something like that, but it is totally possible to have it spread out on a bunch of different cards. But it is also totally possible to compress your game and have multiple pieces of information on a single card. So an example of this is in the Virtual Reef Diver game that we made. Initially, you could draw a there was an extra set of cards in the reef that you laid out. There were sand cards. With those sand cards, you would get them and dig them up, and then they would provide you with 2 chances to draw from the action deck, and because you're bringing up stuff and then you choose and that kind of thing. And we, through playtesting, so that was good, but it made the deck 80 cards instead of 72 cards. And then it turned out that with the manufacturing code we got, 72 cards was the size of the plate that they would do. Well, not the plate, sorry, the print sheet. And actually having those extra 8 cards to make it 80 meant that a whole other sheet had to be printed. So it wasn't necessarily double the cost, but it was definitely not worth it to have those 8 cards in the game. So those 8 cards were actually, that functionality was separated and put into the technology cards. So now instead of just getting the technology as a point, part of the technology was also what you could previously dig up in terms of actions, and they became a point, a technology, and an action to use elsewhere in the game. So that was one little workaround that I did, and it's one of those hard things where you might not necessarily know where you need to trim down areas of your game until you start getting those manufacturing quotes. Another thing that commonly happens is we as designers might think, well, I need dice and I need little components and tokens and things to represent different things in the game. So an element of luck can be really important to your game, but if you need, because we're talking mostly about educational science games, some of the tropes and kind of more standard mechanics that are present in mainstream board games might not necessarily be things you need to emulate. So what am I talking about? That means instead of a dice, if it's usually a 50-50 chance for something to happen, maybe what you could do is you could include in your rules flip a coin, which would be totally okay because most people have a coin, or they'll have an app that they can use, or they can just grab any random thing and toss it in the air and have it fall on one side. But that will essentially allow you to have a 50% chance mechanic in your game, but you don't need to pay for a dice. And like I said in the previous node, which is about estimating manufacturing costs, if you're adding stuff to your game, including shipping and larger box size and sort of doing a custom plastic insert and stuff like that, it's all going to add about $4 US to your game, roughly. Okay, that might not be what it says in the quote and stuff like that, but at least in my experience, adding that kind of stuff sort of roughly ends up being about that much, depending on the manufacturer you get. If you know anywhere more affordable, let me know in the comments. But so yes, so that's my general advice for that. For this node is to design to your budget. You just got to figure out what you have the money to do, and maybe different areas where you need to combine, trim, or supplement with external materials that people can bring into the game to keep your projects within that budget. The materials provided for this node are a sort of a little worksheet of like, in my game, if it's too expensive, what could I combine? What things could double up as different things, and maybe what mechanics or elements of the game could players actually provide themselves that are pretty easy and common, like coins and things like that, to make the game a little more affordable. So yeah, let me know any questions down in the comments of this node, and once again, good luck.